My vision of astrotometry is clear. It's still developing, but it's definitely something that is way more advanced than our heliocentric worldview, and it needs to be treated as such. It's something completely different. It doesn't disrespect or disregard the science that we've already done. It makes the observations in astronomy even more important. But what those observations actually mean, what they actually translate into in astrotometry, is hyperdimensional. And so there's a dimensional shift that has to happen on the analysis of the data. And that is going to take a long time to figure out. And I'm willing to work on that. I'm willing to do that work, but I'm not the teacher. I can't be the person that teaches. I don't do that well. And I'm, after I learn something, I'm usually on to the next thing, and I don't really have time to go over and over and over. And that's just how I got where I am. That's how I got to this understanding. And so the disclosure project that Dr. Greer is working on, as far as contact with extraterrestrials, extra-dimensional beings, I think the bigger issue is, what is the government hiding about its own activity? What is the government hiding about the truth about what is discovered about the nature of the heavens? And the truth about why we haven't been back to the moon. Why haven't we been back to the moon? Why don't we get the truth on that first? Because I think that's much more tangible. The nature of time and gravity is going to be very, very key in understanding this. And the rules, the understandings that we have are going to have to shift. And this is getting into more scientific stuff. This is more detail-oriented stuff. But the relationship between the movement of time and the movement of gravity is reflected in the electromagnetic force. And so I'm going to go ahead and explain this. I think it was Justin that's having some trouble understanding the comet, and I don't know. I'm going to try this one more time to explain the connection between the what I'm seeing with the connection between the electromagnetic force and the entry of the sun-grazing comet into the solar system, and how that relates to the symmetry. In astrotometry, the magnetic field is not a single direction. The polarity of the magnetic field is related to our gravity. And the field itself is normally conceived to have a polarity. So there's like a north pole and a south pole. And the pole determines the direction of the fields. Well, in astrotometry, the field moves in both directions. It's a waveform. And so there's it's constantly moving back and forth as what the Earth is carried through time by this field. This field creates the Earth in astrotometry. And so there's this constant movement back and forth. There's a waveform that's underneath. This is the common carrier. The common carrier moves through the electromagnetic field at a much greater rate. And that is what moves the Earth through time. And it's the disturbance of that movement back and forth that creates the shadow on the sun when something moves into this field. When something moves into this field, it's the Earth's movement through time that's being disturbed, that we see as a spot on the sun, as a disturbance or an active region right here. And it has to do with the size of this object, the velocity of this object, and the trajectory of this object. Because it's the time field, it's the field between the Earth and the sun that is being disturbed. And it's the frequency of this wave that moves underneath of the electromagnetic wave that gets disturbed. That's why it can be imaged with the extreme X-ray telescopes. That's why the sunspot appears black to the eye, but emits energy in the X-ray band. It's because this waveform, when this object is right here, it's the waveform between the Earth and the Sun that is being disturbed by the object. And so it's the Earth's translation through time that's being disturbed, and that's why we see the active region on the Sun. Now, there are tons and tons of videos from the SOHO satellite that show back when the solar cycle was at its peak, these objects, these sun-grazing comets, impacting the Sun, and the Sun reacting with a coronal mass ejection. There are tons of them. They're all over the internet. And this is not something that can be ignored. This is reality here. This is how the universe is put together. And if you want to, I mean, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna turn science into a church. And if you want to, if you're gonna try to say that the shadows on Venus aren't the shadows on Venus, it's the same thing. The shadows on Venus were known about a long time before Galileo. And the reason that Galileo brought them to the attention of everybody is because he discovered the telescope. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. The people who put together the SOHO project, the people who created the Extreme X-ray telescope. I mean, these people have done some serious work here. This wouldn't have been possible without the space explorers. I'm not dissing astronomy. I'm just saying that we need to be careful. We need to be careful with our concept of what we think we're doing when we go into outer space. And this is a serious issue. And I don't know how to I really don't know how to approach it. And so, like I said, I'm not a diplomat. I am not a diplomat. And I can be a very, very nice person. I can also be an incredibly mean person and somebody that you don't want to mess with. So why haven't we been back to the moon, guys? I know you're watching. My subscribers, I don't know if my subscribers realize this, but most of the people that are watching my video are over 50. And they are not posting on the site. They are not showing their face here, but they're watching because they know how important this is. And I haven't heard from you guys directly, personally, as far as I know, but it's important. And if you want to play games, you better understand the board that you're playing on. And I don't think you understand the board well enough. Maybe it's my problem. Maybe I don't understand the board well enough. So it's this movement through the hypertime. It's this movement that goes back and forth between the Earth and the Sun, this carrier wave that is responsible for not just time but for gravity. In a very real sense, the entire planet is on the molecular level accelerating up. The reason that we see the force of gravity is because as far as with respect to time goes, the way that the planet is coming apart and going back together creates, through time, what we perceive as gravity. And that happens on the molecular level. It's aggregated. I don't know if you've seen the chronodifferentiated motion video that I made before. I tried to explain this and provide some more abstract models that don't require an understanding of astrotometric translation. But the concept is that we're being translated across what we see as the Sun. The Sun isn't a singular object. It's a multiple object. There are many of them, just like it, every moment. In other words, we are moving through what we appear to see as the Sun into a super similar or self-similar place. Does that place really exist? Is it virtual? Is it persistent? I don't know the answer to those questions. I'm getting a lot of that. What's out there? What's really out there? I don't know. Is it real? Is it persistent? Is it a hologram? I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I think. I don't think it really matters because even if it is morphogenic, it's virtually real. And so that's a interesting question. I don't think it's one of the important questions. And so and I don't want to answer it non-scientifically. Astrotometry doesn't have an answer for that. It doesn't have an answer for everything. It shows a lot of things about the way what we conceive about the nature of reality are questionable, highly questionable. But the main thing is that the Earth isn't necessarily separate, and that what we see out there has more of a component relationship to the Earth on a level underneath. As above, so below.